Morgan, and today I want to talk about something that Elon Musk said on, I don't know if this is called like Twitter or X anymore. I don't typically, I don't use the site. I don't have an account here. But one of my friends shared like a screenshot of this and was kind of calling out how it may, Elon Musk may discourage people from going to therapy. But that got me thinking that it's like, there's so much nuance to Elon's comment here, or this little tweet here that says, put never went to therapy on my gravestone. And it's like, I feel the need that I need to talk about this and give commentary on this. First of all, I remember when Elon Musk came out as being on the autism spectrum on Saturday Night Live. I happened to be watching that evening, and it was just like one of the coolest things ever to see someone like openly come out as having Asperger syndrome, because that's what I was diagnosed with back in like 2005. And that tells me that Elon Musk was diagnosed back during the DSM-IV. Because under, I think it's the DSM-V now, the different like little subcategories of autism got like revamped or something. And so like people who are diagnosed now typically aren't diagnosed as having Asperger syndrome. So that means that he was diagnosed at an earlier point in time. And so I wanted to talk about this because first of all, the never went to therapy thing seems like it's probably factually incorrect, because in order to be diagnosed with Asperger syndrome or autism, like you'd be seeing a mental health professional first. So he probably did have mental health support, at least when he was younger. And I also wanted to talk about this to expound on the fact that it's like, I completely understand and respect why he'd want to say that, why he'd want to say never went to therapy, because I grew up in the 2000s. I survived the 2000s and the 2010s, and it was not a good time to be on the spectrum. It was not a good time to be on the spectrum. Like, I still remember that awful Autism Speaks commercial that was like, I am autism, and it was like comparing people like me to like ending marriages and causing bankruptcies and all this awful stuff. And I'm like, this is what my representation was, first of all. And I'm like, that was just horrible, I think, for like my self-image, but also for the way that people as a society like viewed autism. I thought that was like really terrible, tragic messaging that I think has done a lot of damage to this day. And secondly, Elon Musk and I were both alive at a time when there was a major push to cure autism. And there were a lot of really dangerous things that were tried on people like us that were not proven to be like actually work. And in some cases were extremely dangerous. And so I can't speak to what Elon Musk himself has gone through, but it is very possible that he could have been given experimental treatments to try and cure his autism. And if he survived that, then I could never blame him for hating on therapy. I could never blame him for not promoting therapy, because if he was I'm just saying, there were some really messed up things that were tried on people with autism. An example of that would be chelation therapy, which can cause really horrible side effects, and it doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. And I remember too, there was this gluten-free, casein-free was being pushed when I was younger. And here's the thing. There are people with autism who happen to have other health conditions. Like if someone has celiac disease, then of course they should be seeing a doctor about celiacs. But I remember a lot of autistic kids were put on gluten-free, casein-free diets without actually having been diagnosed with celiacs or without actually having been diagnosed with a dairy allergy. And I remember that there were a lot of trendy things that were tried on autistic people without them first having had been proven to work. So if he considering the fact that he was alive in the 2000s and the 2010s, it's what sorts of things has he been subjected to? So I cannot blame him one bit for being mistrustful of mental health professionals, or distrustful of any sort of health treatments that would involve neurodiversity in any way, just because there were so many really screwed up stuff that was pushed on autistic people. And it's not something I really want to go into, but it's I have a lot of really shitty experiences from the 2000s time frame, how do I put this? 2006 to 2010 era, especially, I think was really, really, not a good time to have been diagnosed, to have had an autism diagnosis in the United States, because there were a lot of, it was just awful. It was just really, really awful. And I mean, even negating, how do I put this? Even if some of the so-called, cures or treatments that had been tried actually worked, that's trying to erase someone's immutable characteristic. Autism is something that is just a part of who I am. It's not something that, even if there was a cure, I don't necessarily think a lot of us would want one. Just because it's I think differently, and I've thought differently my entire life. And so if there was a cure, I would be nothing like who I am today. So I don't even know if it's something that many people on the spectrum would want. And so, coming from the understanding that Elon Musk lived through a time when a lot of people tried to cure autism, I cannot blame him for being distrustful of mental health providers. So yeah, I wanted to talk about this because this isn't talked about enough, that a lot of us who, how do I put this? The people who are diagnosed more later in life, I think in some ways are fortunate that there's some ways they're unfortunate, but in some ways they're fortunate that they didn't have to deal with all the people trying to try BS treatments on them. So yeah. And I do want to talk about the fact that a lot of us who were alive during that era survived some really fucked up shit. So yeah, and I feel I have a lot of internalized ableism and trauma, and I suspect that Elon Musk probably does too. So yeah, thank you for listening to this video, and I hope to promote actual acceptance of autism and not just the, raise awareness stuff. I want to promote actually accepting people as human beings.